Hello, everyone, and welcome to this live episode of Langer at the Mic, where we will be breaking down the Montreal Canadiens' first win of 2021. And it was a dominant one. It was a dominant win against the Edmonton Oilers, 5-1, the final score. And this is why, honestly, as fans and media and all of that, that's why we got excited about the Montreal Canadiens this offseason. And that's why even a lot of people and a lot of hockey experts had the Canadiens winning the Scotiabank North Division because of, like I said, the way Marc Bergevin built this team this offseason and with the way they played it through these first two games so far. And they just took it to the Edmonton Oilers tonight. They really just took it to them. And especially when the game was close, while it was still, within a 1-2 goal game, they just, the Habs just had the pedal to the metal and they just never let the Oilers really in this one. But anyway, we're going to start with our moments that mattered first in each period as usual. And then at the end, we'll get into our good habits and our meh Hab-Its. So let's get right into it. From the top, Josh Anderson, of course, one of those key acquisitions, had 2 goals in his Canadiens debut on Wednesday against the Toronto Maple Leafs. And right off the bat, on his first shift, goes right down and end to end on his left wing, on his off wing, and takes it hard to the net. And with no regard for, I don't know what defense, I think it was Darnell Nurse or Shore covering him, whatever, but he just took it hard to Koskinen. And he fell or whatever, but still just showed a willingness to take it hard to the net. And, you're going to generate a lot of scoring chances that way. And that's how he got his second goal of last game. And he did that numerous times last game against the Leafs. So that was fun right at the beginning. And then also don't forget that there was a clear goalie interference penalty by Leon Draisaitl that, if that for whatever reason, whatever stupid reason counted, and it could have, because who knows what goalie interference is nowadays, well, it could have been a very different hockey game. So obviously, thank God the refs got it right in that one, and they waved it off right away because Price was taken out of his net because Draisaitl was crashing the net, and I think he kind of bounced off of Sherratt and then just completely took Price out of position. Thankfully, the refs got it right and waved it off right away. And thankfully, Dave Tippett didn't challenge it, and the refs reversed it. And anyway, just who knows what goal interference is nowadays, but they got it right. And then the Habs went right, to the power play and scored another power play goal after being so awful on the power plays last couple of years. My first thought is we could stop thinking about wanting to decline power plays when we get those chances, or when the Canadiens get those chances. That's 3 power play goals through 2 games so far. There's still 54 games left in the season, sure, but the power play is off to a really, really good start so far, and that's very encouraging. And Jeff Petrie he basically hand passed it to himself through Koskinen. It's funny, or lucky, because if Petrie had he hand passed it at the net, and it went through Koskinen, and if that had gone in, that wouldn't have counted because he would have essentially hand passed it. But because it went through the crease, or through Koskinen, through the crease, he was able to pick it up on the other side, and none of the Oilers players knew where it was, and he had a wide open net, and we all kind of knew it was going in just even before Petrie really got there, because they had a wide open net and no one knew it was there. So, and then the Habs, just from that goal, I find the Oilers actually had a pretty good start to the game. But then the Habs just dominated after that. The domination began after that goal. And the only problem with that first period, honestly, was the fact the Habs didn't score 5 goals. I think they outshot the Oilers 6, they had over 15 to 6 were the shots on goal or something. It was just a dominant first period by the Habs. But luckily, their puck luck, or they were able to bury the chances that they got in the second period. And not to mention the fact that Price made some really, really big saves on the Oilers' early power play, which I'll get into in a little bit. Price had a fantastic game. And then Tatar had a snipe and a half on a play that Joel Edmondson stepped up on Connor McDavid. McDavid was streaking up the boards, and Edmondson stepped up on him. It was a gutsy play, because if McDavid got by Edmondson like he did in the first period, well, then, that could have been really ugly. But because Edmonton stepped up, turned the puck over, Habs went back the other way. I think it was Jeff Petrie took the puck, sent it right to Thomas Tatar, who buried a nice, bar down or top shelf one-timer for the second goal of the game. And then there was the Jake Evans shorthanded goal. Now, That was before that. That was the unluckiest puck over glass penalty, or one of the unluckiest puck over glass penalties I've seen from Arturi Lehkonen. Because all you're really doing is just swatting at the puck along the ice in your own zone, and you just get like a weird kind of bounce or just like a weird angle of your stick at the puck, and it goes like a lot higher than you want it to. So like that was just really unlucky, and that could have been bad because remember, they have Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, and it's only 2-0 at this point. But instead of them scoring their first goal, instead of them making it, the Oilers making it 2-1, the Canadiens, Jake Evans, went on a 2-on-1 chance, and he scored a shorthanded goal, and that's what made it 3-0 for the Habs, and that was basically game over pretty much at that point. Even though 3-0 leads are nothing in hockey nowadays, like this, are not safe by any means. It was still essentially the end of the game at that point. But to me, what I really liked about Jake Evans there was shooting on a 2-on-1 as a fourth line player, as a former 7th round pick. And don't get me wrong, Jake Evans has earned a spot on the Habs fourth line and he's still gonna get better with his faceoffs and with his defensive coverage and all that. But you know what? If you have a 2-on-1 and you don't have all the time and space in the world, and especially if the defenseman is playing his position well, just shoot the puck on net. And he did that. Koskinen got the first save, but guess what? Because Koskinen is not a good goalie, he gave up a bad rebound, and it landed right back on Evans' stick, and Evans buried it. So credit Jake Evans for his first goal of the season and that shorthanded goal. And Habs continued to dominate on that. Although the Oilers did actually push back a little bit in the second period, and they were leading in shots on goal by the end of the second. And then I have to point this out: the Jonathan Drouin hooking penalty, the offensive zone Jonathan Drouin hooking penalty at the end of the second. Because again, here it was 4-0 at this point. It was the Tatar goal. Wait, I'm missing something. Oh yeah, there was the other Petrie goal, I'm missing, where he fired at the net. Tatar was in front battling, I think, with one of the Oilers defensemen, and it went off the Oilers defense. It might have been Darnell Nurse and in, so it's 4-0 at this point. And Drouin takes an offensive zone penalty at the end of the second period, a hooking penalty. And honestly, like Drouin produces. He produces offensively. He gets assists. He doesn't score a lot of goals, but he gets a lot of assists. He has great vision. He's great at making plays, and he plays when he's healthy and when he's at his best. He's even playing hard, and you notice him in the offensive zone. But the reason why Jonathan Drouin is so polarizing, and at least my problem with him, and why so many Habs fans have issues with him, is because just the stupid just boneless or just being at the wrong place at the wrong time type of plays. Just like in that Leafs game where he knocked it off the ref and it landed right back in front and Jimmy Vesey buried it easily. Or here, a hooking penalty at the end of the period. So it's just plays like that are frustrating from Jonathan Drouin and that make him such a polarizing player, because if he just didn't take stupid penalties or like stupid hooking, stupid lazy tripping penalties or offensive zone penalties, and if he didn't blatantly turn pucks over and if it was just him putting up 40, 50 points a season, he would be a perfectly fine second line center on the Habs, and no one would care. No one, there would be not really much of a downside to his game. And I mean, I don't know if whether or not he'd still be a minus player, but anyway, just wanted to mention that a little bit. But then Habs killed off the penalty because of more awesome saves from Carey Price and Tatar. That the Habs broke out broke out of their zone pretty easily on Tatar's breakaway goal. Like Gallagher casually passed it in front to Tatar, and Tatar basically buried it on Koskinen to make it 5-0. And then after that, you had the Slater Cuckoo goal, who has a really awesome last name, Slater Cuckoo. And even though it's not spelled like that, it's just fun to pronounce. But anyway, and to me, Price was playing so well at this point, and it was just frustrating to see him give up a goal like that, because that is just improper reverse VH execution. That basically Jeff Petrie scored the exact same goal on Matt Murray in the playoffs last year. I mean, he had a little more time and space along the boards, true, but to me, there are so many goals in the last 4 or 5 years with NHL goaltenders just dropping into that reverse VH, again, inside knee down on the post position, giving up that perfect shot above the shoulder. You're taking away everything low on the ice, and sure, okay, you have the edge on your post. You're able to kick off your posts and use your stick actively, sure, but you're also giving up the top shelf, and NHL shooters can bury that top shelf shot if they have time and space, which Slater Cuckoo did when he buried that goal. So it would have been nice to see Price get the shutout, but anyway. Now, and then, of course, you had the ugly hit by Darnell Nurse at the end and pushing Gallagher into the boards, which we'll get into as well in our next segment of good habits and bad habits, or meh habits in this one, because, again, the Habs had a dominating first win of the season. So not necessarily bad habits. We'll call them meh habits again. But good habits. This was not only a dominant performance by the Habs when the game was close, but it was a balanced performance. It was balanced domination. Even though it didn't necessarily show up on the score sheet, you can say that all four lines contributed in this game in some way, in all three defense pairings. You had the top line producing with Tatar scoring his 2 goals, who has 3 goals on the year now. Tatar does. Petrie had his 2 goals, the one power play goal and the one that went off the Oilers defenseman the second. Petrie, that by the way, is by far the Canadiens' best offensive defenseman. He might even, it's pretty close, like in terms of, like, Shea Weber's obviously the captain, the leader, and all that. Petrie is the most, I'd say the most, like, all around, or the most offensive and the smoothest defenseman on the Canadiens right now. And he's played basically every game the last 4 years. So he's been durable, he's been steady, he's been consistent, and he's been smooth, and he scored some big overtime goals. He had 2 in this game as well, and he's on my fantasy team. So yay me. No one cares about that. Anyway, yeah, so he had his 2 goals, and Romanov will be as good offensively, if not better, soon. And Romanov, he's the smallest defenseman on the Habs, by the way, believe it or not, but he plays like he's still one of the other big towers on defense that the Canadiens have. So, but yeah, so you had, again, it was still a balanced performance because you had the 2 Tatar goals, the 2 Petrie goals, the Evans goal, and the rest of the lines still controlled the play well, especially in the Oilers' offensive zone, enough to win, especially while the game was close. And Josh Anderson, like I said, very first shift, drove down that left wing and crashed the net. Maintained pressure. The Suzuki wasn't as noticeable offensively, but he was really good defensively. Broke up a couple of good chances by McDavid at some points in the game. And even the fourth line was good. I mean, Paul Byron has a really bad contract for a fourth liner. We all know that. But his speed is still deadly when he has time and space. And, again, might not have the best offensive touch, but if he has time and space, he will speed right down the wing. He'll use his speed right down the wing and create chances in the offensive zone. And even on the D side as well, like, just if you look at the ice time, the D man with the lowest ice time was Brett Kulak at 14:38, and Sherratt actually led the defenseman in ice time with 23 minutes. And on the forward side, the lowest in terms of ice time was Evans at 12:35, and Toffoli was the most, believe it or not, at 17:21. So again, very balanced use by Claude Julien and his forward and deep pairing, his forward lines and deep pairings. And it also could be because of the blowout, but in a long season, it's nice to see that you're not using a certain forward 22 minutes or a certain D-man 30 minutes. But again, that's probably more because of the blowout that was, but still nice to see a balanced use of that. And also, now, let's talk a little bit more about the defenseman. Let's talk about Jake Edmondson, because Jake Edmondson did struggle in the first game. He was much better in this one. Joel Edmondson, Joel Edmondson was much better in this game. There was the one play where McDavid blew right by him in the first period, but that was more because Toffoli was kind of a little bit casual at the blue line, going backwards, going towards the Oilers blue line or away from the Oilers net. So that that allowed McDavid to take it away and gain a step on Joel Edmondson. But besides that, he basically caused the Canadiens' second goal, the Tatar goal, the first Tatar goal. And he played, and besides that, he wasn't as noticeable in a good way. He was not as noticeable in a good way. So so it was nice to see Joel Edmondson bounce back with a much stronger game here than in the Toronto game. But Tyler Toffoli, let's get into Tyler Toffoli. He honestly, just to me, it's more about puck luck with him, because in both the Leafs game and this game, he has found himself in excellent scoring positions. He had the bad breakaway in the first period that he messed up. He took a really he fanned and just screwed up his shot on that 3-on-1 chance in the second. But again, he's still finding himself in good scoring positions. And to me, the goals will come. The goals will come over time. He's a perennial 20 plus goal scorer. So he'll be okay. Just puck luck needs to be a little bit better, and that will come with time. I'm not too worried about him. And by the way, fans on Twitter have been calling him, or have been saying that he reminds him of Michael Ryder. To me, I don't really agree with that, because Michael Ryder, if he's not scoring, you don't notice him. You don't see him affect the game in any way. Whereas at least Tyler Toffoli, he's not scoring right now, but he's still getting in really good areas to score. He's still, you're noticing him. You're noticing him take good shots. You're noticing him in good at the right place at the right time. Just again, not getting the puck luck. So I like what I've seen from Tyler Toffoli so far. Goals will come eventually. And of course, Jesperi Kotkaniemi, same story, hasn't produced on the score sheet yet, but every time he's on the ice, he's still tenacious on the forecheck. He's still finding himself in decent positions for scoring chances. He's not getting. I think it was only in the first period was really hemmed into his own zone. But besides that, yeah, Kotkaniemi has been solid. He's been solid, even though he hasn't produced on the score sheet yet, which I'm sure he will eventually, especially with the power play time that he's getting. And last but not least, Carey Price playing exceptionally well in a building that he usually struggles in. And that imagine if McDavid buries that breakaway. Imagine if Connor McDavid scores on that breakaway in the first period, how much different this game could have been. Could have been a real barn burner. Like it could be on Monday. But because like that save early on in the first just kind of allowed the Canadiens to be like, okay, we got this. We're still going to dominate. We're still going to score. The puck's going to bounce our way eventually. And it did. And yeah. And of course, Price made unbelievably key saves in the second and third period. He stopped 34-35, and he should have had that shutout if it wasn't for that one misexecution of the reverse VH on that goal. Now, let's talk about things that concern me a little bit. I call them the meh habits. So, Canadiens were bad on faceoffs again today. They were 39% only in the faceoff circle. 32. It was 32 for 31 for the Oilers. So that's a concern going forward, especially if we're talking about trying Pierre-Luc Dubois, for trying to acquire Pierre-Luc Dubois, and if you're going to get rid of Deneau, just again, not saying they should. I'm just saying if that's what the case is, well, you're going to have to replace Deneau's face-off ability because he's the only guy that can consistently win face-offs on this Canadiens team. The other thing that kind of concerns me, again, just going to nitpick a little bit here. Again, while the Habs did dominate when the game was close. They didn't when they took a little bit off the gas, and Price had to. If Price wasn't as awesome as he was, how much closer would this game have been? Would the Oilers have gotten maybe another 2-3 goals and made this 4-3 going to the third period? Because that's kind of what happened against the Leafs, the way I see it. Right. So to me, how well did the Habs really play defensively? Is my question. Because they gave up 35 shots, they allowed chances, and even though they dominated when the game was close. But that could also be just the fact that the Oilers have, again, Connor McDavid, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, and Leon Draisaitl. And obviously in this Canadian division, you look at the Leafs, they have Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, Nylander, you know it all, John Tavares. And then the Jets with between Laine and Connor and Scheifele and all that, right? So it's not going to get any better. All these Canadian teams have a lot of talent at forward. So that could also be part of it. But yeah, just and the fact the game was pretty much over midway through the second anyway. But just would like to see the Habs give up maybe, under 25 shots would be nice. But again, just nitpicking a little bit here. And you won't be perfect on every night, of course. And the other concerns are I really hope that Brendan Gallagher is okay from that hit by Darnell Nurse late. And to me, what kind of concerns me is the lack of response. Now, I know you're going to play the Oilers 8 more times or 9 more times, whatever it is going forward in the rest of the season. I think 8 more times. But you'd like to see a little bit more of an immediate response instead of Gallagher, who is the guy who got hit, and he's the one that rushes back to Darnell Nurse and say, hey, why the heck did you just do that? That was not cool type of thing. So I would have liked to have seen a little bit more response to tell the Oilers, like, hey, this game's out of hand. You can't go after one of our emotional leaders like that and just F off. And it would have been nice to see Darnell Nurse maybe even get more than a 2, get maybe boarding and kicked out or get, a game misconduct for that. But anyway, we'll see. Hey, the league could still step in and fine him, maybe even suspend him. We'll see. But that was really not cool at the end there. And obviously a little bit of concern for Lehkonen, who took a pretty, I don't want to say it was a bad hit. It was just more of like a bad collision, because I think it was, I forget who lined him up, but just it was lining him up for a clean hit, but ended up being like just kind of an ugly collision. And he just kind of took the bad part of that. So I hope Lehkonen's okay. And Josh Anderson also whiffed on his on a forechecking attempt in the third period and took a bit of a rough bang into the boards there. So I hope he's okay as well. But anyway, besides that, the Habs took it to the Oilers while the game was close. They shut out both. They didn't allow any goals from McDavid or Draisaitl, and they held McDavid to only 1 assist on that Slater Cuckoo goal. and Price just absolutely shut the door on the Oilers when the Oilers decided, hey, you know what, we're going to try to be good. So that's really encouraging. And the Habs go at it against the Oilers again on Monday. And I would ride with Carey Price again on Monday because I would want him to build off his strong performance from tonight. But I would debut Jake Allen against the Canucks either, I think it's Wednesday and or Thursday night. But for now, hey, 5-1, huge first win of 2021. Very exciting to see the positives carry over from last game into this game and result in a dominating victory. And that's all we got here for this Langer at the Mike Habs postgame show. As usual, give me a big subscribe and a big thumbs up on this video. Give me a follow at Mike Langer both on Instagram and Twitter. And thank you so much for watching this Habs postgame show. And I hope to see you again next time.